This is MEC 140, computer programming. Here we can see an assembly line that uses analog inputs as the processes. We start our assembly line with the press of this button, which brings the first product into the warehouse. Our first process starts with the press of the analog pressure resistor. As you can see, the red lights signify backup, the green signifies go or done. Our second button, the photoresistor takes an analog input and that activates the motor, or in this case the conveyor, which moves the product to the next process. Our third button, our temperature sensor, takes the temperature, which is its analog input, and the conveyor then takes the first product into the warehouse. And that first product is now finished. We then start the process again with the press of the button. We take our pressure resistor value, we press our second button, which activates the photoresistor, and we press our third button, which activates the temperature sensor. Now I'll show you the code on my screen after.
Here's the code that we use for the assembly line. We first used the define command to claim our analog pins, which were pin A2, A1, and A3. This was for the pressure sensor, the photo sensor, and the temperature sensor. Then we used the define command to claim our start button, which started the assembly line, our button 2, which was for stage 2, and our button 3, which was for stage 3. Then we used the define command for the LEDs for stage 1, 2, and 3. We then added our sensor values. We set them as 0 for our starting value. Then we used a boolean. This was for our debounce. The debounce was added to prevent the system from cycling through itself without the engagement of the button. We also defined the conveyor or the motor as pin 6. Then we enter the void setup, and we see our baud rating of 9600. And we define our pins, whether they're analog inputs, such as the pressure sensor, photo sensor, and temperature sensor, or they're digital outputs, such as the LEDs. Next, we head to the void loop and enter stage 1. Most of the stages are very similar, except the analog input that we're using. As you can see for stage 1, we're using the pressure sensor value of 1010 to commence stage 1. Stage 2, we see the photo sensor, and it sees that there's a change in light, and it begins. We see our temperature sensor, and it senses its change in temperature, and it begins. And then we send the final piece to the warehouse, and then this is easily repeatable. I hope you enjoyed my video, and thank you for watching.